There we go. Okay, so we will call this meeting to order. And one of the things that council is doing is trying to get rid of some paper. And so in an effort to do that, we're trying to deal with technology exclusively. And so we're in a transition that hopefully by January 1st will transition all the way. But I'm trying to use this technology tonight, so bear with me as we go along here. So I'll start with a land acknowledgement in the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation. The town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of the Sauridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit people who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. We have an agenda in front of us. Any changes to the agenda? If not,
I have a suggestion.
you have a suggestion, okay?
Before we do all of our committee updates, can we get to the reports by the admin?
We could switch.
So that is a change, not a suggestion.
Okay. Okay, so that's a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, so then we'll start though with our delegations. And so we have one tonight from the Lesser Slave Lake Regional Arts Council. So if you guys want to come forward and introduce yourself, John will turn on that mic. So we have the information too that you guys had sent in the package here. Click on it and it should show up. Yes, it does. Perfect. Sorry, you guys have the floor.
Okay, I'm Julie Sparks. I'm the president of the Lesser Slave Lake Regional Arts Council.
Okay.
And this is
Katrina Hill, and I'm just a member of the Arts Council and on the mural committee
Okay.
that we have. And we're here to further our plea for the presentation that was made to the delegation that was made for more funding for next year's murals. But before I go there, I would like to, first off, the Arts Council, when I say I mean the Arts Council.
Okay.
Sorry. Like to thank council and everyone who has participated in those two murals that we have managed to get up this year. We're very happy to announce that both are now complete. And without all the support from the town, from the volunteers and everybody else, we probably would never have been able to achieve what we have. In order to acknowledge, we are intending to have plaques made that would be mounted in a corner, probably the right-hand corner of the mural, recognizing the artists, sponsors, etc., that we feel is related to the mural.
Okay.
And we also intend putting thank you recognition on social media as well as in the leader. We have not done this to date as we are looking for direction as to how town and council would like to be acknowledged, i.e. sponsor, funding, grant monies, left over from downtown beautification. We're just not sure how that acknowledgement should be made.
Yeah, realistically sponsored is probably
Sponsored?
Yeah, like it
Okay.
wasn't grant money, it was tax funding that was used to do that,
Okay,
so.
okay.
I even like the word partner rather than.
Well, yes, and that was another word, was partnership.
Whatever you feel is appropriate.
Okay,
Either of those work for us.
okay. Okay, so now having got that done, for 2023, per the delegation to council, we are asking for continued financial support from council for both initial mural costs and ongoing maintenance of the same. We feel that they really add to the aesthetics of our community. And using the dollar numbers from the two completed murals this year, we feel a budget of 20,000 per mural is not unreasonable. Of course, there will be variables, i.e. size, artist fees. Do we install dye bond, which we did for both murals this year? And we were able to accomplish what we had this year because we had a lot of donated labor in installing the dye bond at the frames and the dye bond that the murals are on. So in 2023, we feel we need to be seeking, so the 20,000 we feel is not unreasonable. And our plans for 2023 are, we feel we need to have a mural reflecting Indigenous culture, keeping in mind that the nature theme that there is for downtown.
Okay.
And as you can tell, I'm very nervous. And reasons to continue.
It's just being broadcast live to everyone and recorded, but
Reasons to continue, a great asset to our community. And beneficial to the overall town aesthetics. Draw tourists into downtown, hopefully. And we have received nothing but positive for what has been done this year. So we do feel it's a pretty good thing, a pretty good project to keep going for the enhancement of Slave Lake. And perhaps make Slave Lake the mural capital of the North.
okay. So I'll start and say that, ladies, I will tell you that the murals look fantastic. And so I know the council and social media has got a good peek at both of those things, nothing but positive feedback coming from the public. We were happy to sponsor those, and I think it was a great investment in part of our downtown projects. And we appreciate appreciate your society, your group, taking that on, because theoretically it wouldn't happen without your guidance and your passion and your initiative to get it done. So so for our own understanding, so basically these were the two that were done now were completed for approximately 12,000 each, right?
Approximately, one was more than the other,
Okay.
or actually.
And there is still a few outstanding invoices that we haven't accounted for yet. I know on the cost sheet that says that there's another invoice for washers and screws. We're looking for the cost for the plates, something that's going to last a long time.
Right.
And then, being that we had volunteer labor to do the framing and install the dye bond, we were really grateful. If we had to hire that out or get the tools or that sort of thing, we had estimated that would cost an additional $3,500. So we're probably going to be very close to, or if we had to do that. So that's why we're hoping next year, if there's a little bit extra leeway, so that we can get it going and not rely on volunteers to have to get the framing done, that sort of thing.
Okay, so the intention next year is not to use volunteers, but to farm it out, or?
If we can, but I just know that the two guys that I think they're employed out of town. So we women can use power tools too, but maybe not quite as good.
Okay. Okay, and so so you get 12,000 basically a mural. You said it's 600 for, so let's call it 13. And then the 3,500 is.
We haven't accounted, we just put that there's that as.
Is that 3,500 each or for both?
For both, for the
Okay.
two persons, but it just that if we had to pay for that, then we would have gone over budget is probably all is kind of
Okay.
what we're saying. So that way, if we, depending on the building, if, using dye bond again, the costs of lumber and different things like that, we kind of accounted for the extra funds, like it would be 7,000 per mural.
So
It may not be as much, but
okay,
if
so
it's
one you
there.
use dye bond and the other one you went right on the building. So
oh,
No.
both of them are dye bond.
both of them are dye bond, okay?
Yes.
So both are dye bond, but you said one was more expensive than the other, so it wasn't the material behind, it was the artist and
It was
size.
the
and-
artist.
Totally, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so realistically, a rough number is 13,000 a piece plus this labor to hang them and so on and so forth, correct?
yes.
Okay,
We were fortunate this year that the one mural was done by a local girl.
Okay.
Kristen, and there was no subsistence or anything like that involved. You will note that the second one, there was a $44,237 fee for the likes of travel, subsistence, living out, etc.
okay, but I think I read somewhere in your information that the second artist was maybe not living here, but was from here or something, or not?
Yeah, originally she grew up
Connected.
here. Yes, yeah.
So they're kind of both local.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Any other questions from council?
Just, yeah,
Go
sure.
ahead, Councillor Graham.
And so there's also sponsorship funding that you guys are also looking into from like maybe companies and stuff along the way, right?
Yes, our intention is that, and also to go out and look for some art grants.
And so say the town was able to come up with your funding request, any additional money would go to a future mural or something, or is that what the plan would be?
Well, it would be nice to have a little bit of a comfort zone. I mean, this year has been so like a whirlwind getting what we have done, that we haven't really pushed out in those avenues yet, but our intention is to do so. But it would be nice to know that we could maybe have enough to get ourselves up and running next year, because to engage these artists, I think they need to know somewhat ahead of time that they have a project.
Okay. Okay, other questions? So just a comment, council actually starts budget. We start budget on Thursday. And so budget typically is a number of meetings over a couple of months. And so it'd be some time before we could commit to anything. But realistically, our goal would be to, by the end of the year or the first part of next year, to be able to pass our budget, and then we would have a better idea where things are at.
Okay, that's
All right.
fair.
Yes.
It's fair.
If there's nothing else, thank you very much for coming.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Trying to stick to electronic here. So next we're going to jump into CAO update. Calvin, if you want to hit the highlights. Okay, so now here's the thing then. So for next time, can we have the CAO update has no link in it, right? If it was linked in there, they could bring it up. Instead, I have to switch to another page.
We can talk about it after.
Okay. That would be super handy.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, Calvin.
No problem. Good evening, Mayor and Council. CAO updates. Human Resources has 5 positions filled, and they currently have 6 other positions still open and posted, and 2 pending positions. In finance, they're working on 2023 insurance renewal, working on the 3rd quarter GST returns, and working on the 2023-2024 budget. In operations, they're preparing the equipment and the yard for winter, doing some street sweeping with leaves and cleaning catch basins and storm lines. The utility department, they're just finished a huge hydrant over at the northwest or northeast industrial area. Actually, they just finished that today, so big job there. They drained and cleaned the water basin at the water plant for some maintenance and cleaning, and doing some mainline sewer inspections on 5th Street Northeast. And projects, the SCADA project, we're waiting on some PLC upgrades. They're back ordered, so we're waiting on that, but it's moving on pretty good. Lift station C, they got most of the pipe in, so they're just going to be doing a tie-in in Main Street here in the next 4 days, and then following with a tie-in on lift station side. The new spray park, they've got all the underground finished now. So they'll be starting with cement on Thursday, I believe. So it's moving along pretty good. Third Street water rehab, they got it all finished and commissioned and passed their pressure test and back tees and got it back online. So a little bit of landscaping and cleanup and stuff like that. So planning and development, they continue to work on are working on meetings with Big Fish Bay on some various development projects. They're working in with developers on a couple townhouses. And then working with council with residents for Fournier Place. The fire department, they had 406 calls as of September 12th, and a total of 63 calls in September alone. In September, they had their recruitment process and 6 new firefighters come out of that. They're doing some training in September and various inspections all over the place. Community services. Enforcement, the bylaw officer dealt with 32 complaints or calls for service in September. Aquatics, the pool's reopened after the shutdown. They're having a swim-in movie night on October 28th. And fall swimming lessons have started last week. Facilities and parks. They're doing some maintenance on the buildings, doing some winterizing on the buildings. And planning is underway for refurbishing of the MRC roof. FCSS, they have a family fun night on October 20th with a swim and take home movie package. Youth event Slave Lake will be hosting a Halloween party on October 21st. At the curling club. And then they had several employees attend the emergency social services training just recently. So recreation and programming. There's several event requests for the Legacy Center. December will be a very busy month with Christmas parties and stuff like that. And ICE user groups are in full swing now, and they have a number of events throughout October and the next month and a half. That was about it.
Okay. Sorry, questions for Calvin? Comments, concerns? Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, just wondering here, it says that the controller for the lights for the downtown project is back ordered. Are we still expecting like actual installation of those this year or?
They're expecting them within the next couple of weeks here. So
Okay, so
they
It will be
will have
finished
time
by-
to put them up. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Reminder for me on Third. So we're still doing an overlay on Third and then doing a full lift on it next year, correct?
Yes, correct.
So they're not living on gravel all winter. We're putting some pavement.
They're doing sacrificial.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments? As I see none, we will jump into reports. So moving on to page 7 in our package. We'll jump into the Visitor Information Center summary.
Good evening. So I am here tonight to do a quick verbal overview of the Visitor Info Center, the report, as well as just a general overview of the operations. Excuse me, for the 2022 season. So overall, the season at the Vic was very successful. We opened at the the Vic for the May long weekend, and we ran until the Labor Day long weekend. We did have some limited hours at the beginning of the season as we only had one staff member to start off with. We did offer the position to a second person at the beginning, but they declined. So we had to go back and rehire for the second. Ideally, we should have 3 staff. So we were hiring for the second and third, but we're only successful in gaining a second staff. We did luckily have someone fill in from finance on occasion. So that was very helpful. But so yeah, we had some limited hours at the beginning of the season and then worked our way up to full hours by the end of June. Our hours of operation were based on the previous operational year. So the last year we were operational was the 2020 season. We weren't operational in 2021 due to a lack of applicants for the Vic. The hours worked very well. What we did notice was how busy it was. So my prediction would have been that, you have your busy Friday, Saturday, Sunday with tourists coming in for the weekend, but we actually found that Monday was our busiest day. So we had only one staff on Monday. So that was something that we would look at for following years, is to make sure that we had enough staff. Ideally, if we had our full complement of staff, we would have 2 staff on each day, but that was just a little learning lesson that we had there. Sundays were a quiet day. So people seemed to be out and about and heading to their activities, but Mondays were a busy day, which was a little bit unexpected. Our primary goals for the Vic include providing a positive and personalized tourism experience for Slave Lake, an area in order to facilitate our visitors returning, to provide quality and up-to-date information on local assets and events, work collaboratively with local and regional businesses, and to collect data and feedback from visiting parties. In previous year, the government of Alberta, in partnership with Travel Alberta, had beginning of the season training for Vics across the province. With COVID, that was discontinued. So we did jump in on the Tourism Society's familiarization tours and then did training on our own. Unfortunately, because we only had one staff at the beginning of the season, our second staff member did miss out on the familiarization tours, but overall a little bit. It's nice, the Vic training, while it seems kind of silly, it went over things that weren't necessarily something that the younger generation knows, like how to read a map and all those kind of things. So and while I know that a lot of us think that maps are not something that people want, that's actually a little bit further down, was one of our biggest requests for the summer was maps. So that was just something, a little piece of something that was a little bit more of a challenge this year. Overall, we had 862 people access visitor services at the Vic, and that doesn't include people that just came in to use the washrooms, because that's often something that we find out there, is that people stop by to use the bathrooms. One comment I covered a couple of times out there, and one comment I had is that we were basically the last decent bathroom before you head north. So that's why lots of people stop there.
Welcome to Slave
we
Lake,
should,
last decent bathroom before you go north.
And often too, we had people stop and use the picnic tables outside and access the trails. So it's like people are using the facility, but not always necessarily accessing the visitor services, which is something that I have kind of vocalized in the past, is that I know a lot of people think that we should head more to the digital online, but those people that are traveling do still require services as far as like places to eat lunch, picnic, like I said, picnic tables, bathrooms, all those kind of things. Those are still necessities of people that, as a welcoming and visitor friendly area, if that's what we're looking to be, then we do want to have a space that has that. So that is something that the Vic really does have. Generally, people were looking for information on camping, general information on the area for the purposes of travel or moving to the area, looking for maps or directions, and aquatic activities. So that included swimming or the beach, and fishing and boating. So yeah, we had a really, really large number of people looking for maps. And so one of the comments in it that we had was that the maps that we have, and they're old, so we haven't had a new map since, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 2015 when economic development came up with those tear off maps. So that's the only real map for the Slave Lake area that we still have. Because of the way it's designed, it doesn't capture those camping areas that are on the river. So like Norm's Walleye Camp, Berlin on the river. So that's something that a lot of people commented back on. And we felt was missing, as well as the trails in the area and things like that. So it would be really nice to have a more detailed, up-to-date map of the area to give people. We do have one that was from Alberta Parks that we're able to give, but again, that doesn't capture businesses. So it's a little bit lacking in that area. We also had requests for maps from neighboring provinces. So that's something that we'll reach out to Tourism BC and Saskatchewan to try and get those in future years. Travel Alberta and the province does give us Alberta roadmaps, and those are always popular to give out.
There's people that are saying, hey, do you guys have a map of BC here?
Yeah, because they're coming. So one of the things we really noticed is, we had a large number of people that were coming and had traveled from either Ontario, or we had quite a few people from Germany that were coming. And so they go up to the Northwest Territories and then they go over. So I guess the comment was, we should think, I don't know if it was Tourism Yellowknife or just Northwest Territories tourism in general, but someone put a commercial on in Germany. And so we had a large number of people coming over from Germany that were going up to Greater Slave Lake and the Northwest Territories. So that's where we got the comment that we're like the last good map. So
Sorry,
or good spot.
You knew it came from a commercial?
Yeah, they told, they were commenting to Colbin, because Colbin, who worked out there, would chat with them. And they're like, yeah, we saw this commercial on TV in Germany, and they said to come visit the Northwest Territories, see the Northern Lights, see the land of the midnight sun. And so they do, there was like, I guess it must have been, I haven't looked into this because I just haven't had time, but it was like a road tour that they would fly into Edmonton, come up, stop in Slave Lake, and then head all the way up. So Colvin had an idea that at some point maybe, and I was like, I'll go on the FAM tour if anyone wants to send me on this, that we could do like the Slave Lake tours. So you visit Lesser Slave Lake and Greater Slave Lake. And so anyways, that was just an interesting little comment. And I know this year and the previous year that I supervised, 2020 was slightly different because we're COVID times, but there is an amazing number of people that come from Ontario and come over and stop with us and go up to the Northwest Territories. So it's just like the better route, I guess, up. So because we're the last real
toilet.
The last real service area before you keep heading north, we are a destination. So, and then I know when I supervised in 2019, we had a few people that were so taken with the Vic and the staff there that they actually stopped on the way back as well. So that's kind of one of those little nice stories that I know people are really, again, sometimes look away at going from the visitor info center model, but it is one of those nice personal connections and something that encourages people to visit and stay in the area and return. So that was just like a random thing. One day Colbin said that he texted me and said there was like, oh, I can't even remember, but there's a whole bunch of people in the parking lot because they were from somewhere and they were doing a tour all together heading up to the Northwest Territories. So they, again, kind of convoyed in our parking lot and then kept heading up. So if you're coming from Edmonton, that location is good, which is, one of our challenges is that the east is really the only direction that you do see that building. If you're coming from another direction, it isn't necessarily directly in your path, but generally people like that spot because there's areas for them to park their trailers and campers and things like that. So I know that's often a comment is that the location's not the best and it has its pros and cons. It's a really lovely building. We have so many people comment on what a nice building it is. So it's nice to have it in there, but yeah, location isn't necessarily central for those people coming in, but we did find most people were coming from Edmonton. So from that direction, it is ideal. What are some other things? We had some people from New Zealand, Australia, US, as well as different parts of Canada, but we did see, I think it was 41% of the visitors were from Edmonton. So I know we did some targeted marketing at the Edmonton area. So I'm not sure if it's that or just the fact that it's most close to us geographically, but we did notice that most of our visitors were from that area. The comments back were that we didn't do a gift shop this year because we just didn't have time, but lots of people were missing a gift shop. We did have some displays from local businesses, but they felt that they wanted to have those things that they could purchase there. So that's something that we'll look at for future years. Better maps for the area as well as trails. Up-to-date brochures. We do have the Slave Lake region brochure, but it's a little outdated at this point. Requests for boat tours of the river and lake. And then again, like I said, maps of neighboring provinces. What else do we have here? Just staffing wise or staff wise, there are a few challenges with the fact that we're town staff in an MD building. So just when it comes to safety inspections and some of the maintenance items, things that we had a priority on, like the burnt out light bulbs in the lobby area, aren't necessarily always a priority to the MD. So that was just a little bit of a challenge, or the turnaround time wasn't quite what our health and safety inspection would want, but again, workable things. The MLA's office is a little bit of a challenge because people are coming in there looking for services from the MLA, and they're not things that the VIC provides. So then we had a few instances where people weren't happy with our staff while it's not their responsibility. It would be nice if we could get a few new videos for the display screen. We still have the ones that were created post-fire. So the quadding one that Tyler was in and the ice fishing ones and all those ones, they're still what rotate through on the screen. So that would be nice to have something to update there if anyone's looking for a project. And then, yeah, again, just ideally we would have an extra staff, but overall it's really good summer. I always find it, really interesting, the little stories that come out of there. So yeah, I know some people are looking at going away from visitor info centers, but there are some really good stories that come out. And yeah, we would have never known that we're the route up to Northwest Territories had we not been open there. So yeah.
Okay. Councillor Brandel.
Are we replaying the videos that the guys from Hellfire Heroes made for us too?
We had two, so I think the one was there as well.
Okay.
There's two TVs, so they both had different ones on the loop. So
Okay.
I honestly can't remember, but Colbin did have
I thought
some.
there was like 4 or 5 or something from them.
I think so. I think there's some, but definitely like some of them are outdated because people that come back every summer are like, oh, I saw this last year. So yeah.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you for such a great overview. There's a lot of very useful information in here for me to use as part of the Tourism Society. So you will be happy to know that a lot of the things that are detailed in here are also on our list of topics and things that we are currently starting to work on as far as tourism goes. One of them being printed materials and that marketing type of aspect. So it's definitely on our radar, and I would love to present this same presentation to the group or possibly.
Last year I did go to a Tourism Society meeting. Or I guess it was probably 2020 because we weren't open last year, but I did come to a meeting. So if you guys want that, just let me know when your meeting is.
I think that would be a great idea. I think it would be very helpful for everyone to see this information and understand it. And it just helps provide us a better direction and everything of where we're going. We are excited to work with the new ECDev officer as well. So I just think that there should be an open communication and partnership between the 3 parties here so that we can really get something going. So we want to do it now sooner than later. So we are prepared for next season.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I will reach out to you about inviting you to present this and whatnot. But thank you. I appreciate all the information in here.
And I do believe when we rewrote the economic development job description that the VIC will fall under them, because that is something that I end up with the VIC because it just kind of falls on me every year. So it would be nice if it fell under economic development because it is slightly better fit there for them so that they can connect with that. But I'm like, tourism is my background, so I don't mind helping out with it either, but there's nice to have that connection. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? You know what, can we share with the Chamber of Commerce too? Like,
yeah, no, for sure.
to have it go out to the membership and say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're seeing, businesses, this is where traffic's coming from, this is what's happening. I think those are good news items that we need to Need to share that information there.
No, for
Yeah,
sure.
I would like to send it out and get our.
If you need it, it's in the minutes, but if you want me to send you a copy.
I
as
am,
well.
yeah, if
Okay.
we can just, if you can get a
Yeah,
copy.
I will
to me, that'd
say,
be great.
I mean, Colvin wrote it and it's very university paper style, if you actually read the report.
I did, I
but,
read it.
Yeah,
really
no,
good.
it's still good.
Great.
Yeah.
She's
still good.
surprised at I am one of those people that thought like the screen, like no one uses visitor information centers, and so the numbers have proved me. wrong.
Yeah, I know when we're traveling, we always stop at them because, yeah, it's a clean bathroom and it's a picnic table and I like talking to people because what else is my background, but yeah, I know my husband's like, come on, let's go, but we're in there.
I also
talking,
think if
so-
we could get the gift shopped.
The gift shop, yeah,
going,
no,
That would be a great
yeah,
opportunity.
no, for sure. That's something that's a priority.
Counselor Adams.
I do like the report.
Did you say hi?
I do
Hi.
like the report. The couple questions, or not really questions, I guess, more than statements. I understand. It'd be nice to see what our year over year climb is. We do have, you're saying 291 party visits for the year, but that only works out to an average of about less than 3 a day.
It-
Right.
Yeah, and so there was,
So to have 3 staff,
But it's not all, it's not.
I know it's not all at once, and that's where we don't have that piece of information in the
And it-
stats.
part of what we used to do, so you used to have to be an accredited, and that's because the government of Alberta's changed their program, but to be an accredited Vic, you used to have to be open a certain number of hours and a certain period of time. So that's why, and we weren't open full hours at the beginning of the season either, because we only have 1 staff member. So and 2, I don't think that I mentioned it, but it's not 3 full-time staff. It's 1 full-time staff and then 2 part-time staff. So because legally we have to give people lunch breaks and all that kind of stuff too. So that always ends up in there.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Entertain a motion to accept this as information. Thank you, Counselor Hughes. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next report on page 13 in our package. This is pretty cool. You just click on it and it comes up. It shouldn't be, I shouldn't be so amazed by that. I have the split screen. Yeah, do it.
We have someone who is converting to enjoying the digital.
Yeah, no, I'm coming there. I'm coming. So fire services agreement. And so I see this is a CO one, so Calvin, lead us through it.
Okay. Purpose of this report is for council to approve and enter into a 5-year lesser slave regional fire services agreement with the MD of the Lesser Slave River. Background is the town and the MD have been in this agreement in the past and for many years. Discussion, the Lesser Slave Regional Fire Service Agreement expires on January of 2023. The MD and council and town council have been working on it to develop a new agreement. The options to approve the agreement and direct intermunicipal committee members to proceed with signing of the Lesser Slave Regional Fire Service Agreement between the town and the MD. The second option is to table it. Resource impact. The impact is the same as the previous one. Communications, the ratification of the agreement will be communicated to the public. The recommendation to the council is for administration recommends that council approve the agreement and direct intermunicipal committee members to proceed with the signing of the Lesser Slave Regional Fire Service Agreement between the town of Slave Lake and the municipal district of Lesser Slave River.
Okay. So realistically, this is something that council's been negotiating with the MD since everyone got elected last fall. And so this agreement currently expires at the end of this year. And so after negotiations and discussions there, there's very minimal impact to the fire service agreement and their way of changes. A few little grammatical things that they wanted to clean up. The only real big one came out of here, there's a discussion around philosophy, and I think it'll be one that in future discussions it has to happen. That there's an arbitrary amount in there of approximately 62,500, I think it is, that the ND contributes towards contribution because of the building. And so because the town paid for the building itself, when we bought it and there was no contribution made from the MD, a formula was developed previously where they put in 62,500 for that. So discussion around that was, does that remain forever or what happens with that? We're pretty early in that whole transition that we kind of left it as is, but note to future councils that that will be a discussion item, I think, in the future, but we're not recommending any changes at this time. So we are looking for a motion for council to approve this. Councillor Adams.
Just a question actually for my own understanding.
Go for it.
Why do we sign a 5-year deal if we're allowed to do a 6-month notice of termination?
Just so that it actually physically gets reviewed. So like, I guess your point is just have it in perpetuity if you just got to give 6 months notice and waiver. I think the point is that to make sure that there are no issues that fester and develop. The idea is that the councils look at it and understand it. The other thing is that's built into it, the timing in the term that, you know, the next council that comes on isn't having to deal with it right after they get elected, that they have some time, but there's an emphasis that both councils take the time to understand it. And I think having gone through time in the past where there was a lot of disagreement about both of these agreements and what was fair and what was equitable, I think it's good that you go through that exercise. Councillor Adams.
Make a motion, or sorry, I move to approve the agreement and direct intermunicipal committee members to proceed with signing of the Lesser Slave Lake or Lesser Slave Regional Fire Services Agreement between the town of Slave Lake and the municipal district of Lesser Slave River as presented.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. You know, I have a nitpicky thing. Is there any way that we can have the motion thing like in a different color or something so it pops out a little more?
Can like bold it, make it bolder? Or
Yeah, because we have everything in bold, so it kind of blends in. Like I felt like I was going through it 4 times trying to find the motion there.
Or yeah, I can change that.
Just for like people that are,
Maybe
yeah,
that's it.
even though it says it and I can't, whatever, like
The new people.
it would be interesting if it like popped a little more. Okay. So intermunicipal, Calvin, I'll save you the benefit of not having to read out the exact same stuff all over again. But theoretically, we have the intermunicipal agreement as well. With no real substantive changes there by any means. You know, I don't want to devalue this process, though. There was a number of meetings that went into this and a number of topics that were discussed. And it was those things about, well, I don't understand why is this philosophy in here? I don't understand why is Mitsu listed in here? I don't understand what happens with parks and why is it different? And so it was a good exercise to go through and make sure that everybody understood what the meaning was and what the philosophy around it, or you know, where it came from. You know, some of that though, like it was very obvious through the process that you're really depending on people that have been there before to understand why it's there and why it's like that. And so I don't know how we do a better job in the future of having that all written down so that it isn't a, you know, if you had a bunch of new elected officials and a bunch of new admin, I guess nobody would understand where it all came from. So I do think that that's a little bit of a flaw, but
Well, in fairness, some of the people who wrote the first one didn't understand what they wrote the first time, so.
there is that too. Yeah, so any other questions, comments on this one? Councillor Ferguson,
Just make a motion.
feel free. I found it.
Move to approve
Where it says
the
motion.
agreement and direct intermunicipal committee members to proceed with signing the cost sharing master agreement between the town of Slave Lake and the municipal district of Lesser Slave River as attached.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. This is a big deal though. Like it is a monumental thing to get this done and have it figure it out. And so we will reach out to the MD and see how they want to go about, if it's just as simple as throwing a document across, so they want to do something a little bit more formal. We'll figure those pieces out as we move along and let you guys know what's going So that jumps us through our reports, and now we'll jump into committee reports. We'll start with intermunicipal committee. So obviously the big discussions last time were around the two agreements, and that was where the bulk of our energy was spent. Also an update that came from the MD in regards to Smith Bridge. Something they're quite passionate about, and the fact that they've got a piece of infrastructure there that they were gifted way back in the day when they became an MD. That thing is needing some financial assistance and some input, and it's also a question of whether it justifies inputting or it should just be replaced. But the price tag of approximately 60 some $million or more. I might even have that low. Maybe it's 120 off the top of my head. 80. Is it? It's a big number. It's tens of millions of dollars that theoretically, if we were in the same boat and all of a sudden somebody said, hey, you got to figure this out and pay for it, we would be struggling as well. And so we have been echoing after AUMA or during AUMA with a number of our ministers that they keep talking about the big surplus that the province is enjoying. 4 mills here. We have the highest density of forest production in Alberta right here. You add the leases, the average drilling leases in Alberta right now, I think in an area is something like 52. Over here, it's over 200. And so if you want to know where all that money's coming for the province, I can tell you a big chunk of it's coming from this region. And so the message that we've been sending back has largely been, listen, we're excited to see that the province has money, because there's a number of areas within the province that need financial assistance. We understand that some has to go to debt, but along with that revenue, you're creating expenses on our highways, on our hospitals, on our staffing, on our bridges, and our culverts to make that revenue. And so before you just throw it all into the revenue category, please deal with the expense that comes with making all that money. And so they're hearing that from more than just us, but that is a message that we keep taking back. There has to be some reinvestment as we go along. The other one was a further discussion around industrial land. And so Lori's bringing some information, I think, to one of our next council meetings, as well as to intermunicipal group, that they're feeling the pinch and hearing from the residents and hearing from industry that, things are busy. There is no secret here that the industry is busy north of town in the oil and gas sector. And so you have people interested in coming to the community, but we don't have shop space and we don't have land. And for a community that wants to grow, it's a big issue. And so elected wise, it's something that's top of mind, and we got to figure out what we do with that. Nothing will happen quickly. Land doesn't come online very quick. But it is an issue for sure. That's all I could think of in regards to intermunicipal. Sorry. Any questions? The only other thing I would note there on the intermunicipal is that in regards to the two agreements, the recommendation from intermunicipal was to take it back to councils to be adopted. So our council has, and we'll have to wait to see that theirs does as well. If there's nothing else, I'll move into watershed. Sorry.
Have not met.
Chamber of Commerce.
There we go. So we actually have an event coming up this weekend. We have our Business Excellence Awards evening. Just wanted to say congratulations to all the nominees. We have some really exciting nominees this year, and we're looking forward to the event on Saturday. There are still tickets available, so if you haven't purchased your ticket yet, you can go to the myslavellake.ca, and there's a link to Eventbrite on there. Coming up from there, we have the Moonlight Madness. Moonlight Madness is happening November 25th. That's going to happen with your annual Santa Claus parade, which will also have the craft fair this weekend. Note it is it's a date change from the traditional weekend that it was on, and it is moved to align with Black Friday. So that's in the States, the traditional Thanksgiving shopping extravaganza. So we're excited to see what businesses put out there for specials, and we're hoping to continue the trend in Slave Lake of having people excited and having stores stay open late. And we'll be releasing more details with regards to a few special things surrounding windows displays and the parade as well.
And sorry, what day?
Friday, November 25th. The craft fair is on the All Seasons Market. So the All Seasons Market, we're lucky enough to partner with them again this year, and that will be held on the Friday and the
So
Saturday.
November 25th is the weekend.
That is the weekend.
Questions, comments from council? Alberta North Central Alliance, so we haven't met, we got a doodle poll going around that we're trying to get a meeting here going in November. We've got some grant money there that we hired a company to help us with a strategic plan, and so they've been over the summer gathering a bunch of information from each municipality and First Nation, and so our next step is to gather that and kind of move forward. And so hoping to set up a date here in the next couple of days. Housing.
Have not met.
Tri-Council Health.
So we had a meeting this week. Not the best news, I will say, coming out of our Tri-Council Health Committee. So we are like the other provinces in the country and all the other communities in Alberta facing a severe shortage of nurses. So we've had another resignation since our last Tri-Council meeting, and we are getting to what will be a crisis level. Well, we will start to see disruption in our services. The hospital staff, all the support staff, doctors, nurses, administration are all doing their best to hold on to our current service levels. But it's not sustainable forever at this point in time. So the nursing shortages affect what the physicians can do and has a clinic and a hospital-wide impact. So we are going to see that moving forward. There are going to potentially be service disruptions. They said for the time being, no, but they are working as much as they can. And basically it's probably going to be inevitable. We do have a shortfall regarding a physician. We have a retirement of one of our physicians, and there is a replacement, but their final assessment won't be completed until early spring. So we have what can be expected is longer wait times for appointments. The walk-ins are still open if there's an available provider to do that. So we also have had 0 applications on nursing positions, which is part of the disheartening factor of this all. So we are also, just a couple statistics, we have an increase in our clinic visits. So just to give you guys a perspective of how many people our clinic sees, there were 4,062 clinic visits in September. So the no-show rates actually have gone up. So there were 223 no-shows last month. So the problem with no-shows is those appointments obviously take up time available for walk-ins. So we need to, in order to take better care of our physicians and our nurses, we as citizens need to make sure we're showing up for our appointments or canceling in a reasonable amount of time, because it does have an impact on everyone else's service level. So yes, the increase in patients visits from August to September was 14%. There is a 32% increase in no-shows. Currently, your TNA, which is your time to see your physician, is 23 days and 22 days for a nurse practitioner. So the hospital in our clinic services a patient panel of just about 12,000 people. So when you look at the population of Slave Lake being 7,000 and not everyone seeking care here, we are a center for the greater region. So what does this mean for us? Well, the hospital, the clinic, AHS, they're working to try and improve recruitment practices. What we can do in the short term is thank your nurses, thank your doctors, thank your nurse practitioners. And we can work on actually showing up to our appointments and canceling appointments on time. Those are 2 short-term effects we can work on. And yeah.
You know, the biggest issue is that there's a province-wide shortage. And so we have other facilities around us that have had these issues longer than we have. And then they're pushing their patient volumes to ours. And so we're seeing our patient panels go up. We're seeing our physicians run out of room for new patients. one of the big ones that's going to be the biggest impact and probably the most immediate and will be the longest one to deal with as you move forward is going to be around OR. And so when we don't have enough nurses there, emergency takes precedence over OR for surgeries and such. And we spent a lot of time after the fire working hard to get our OR open again so we could have babies born in our own community. But when you don't have the nursing staff to do that, that makes it difficult. And then you have physicians that part of their job is to look after clinic and part of it is to do some OR. And so we have some physicians that do anesthetics and some physicians that do the surgeries. But they're on a mission to make sure that they keep their skill set up and they have to do so many of those to go. And so as those look for other opportunities somewhere where they can see the volume because ours aren't open, it's going to be a cascade effect. And so OR time is being affected as we speak. And until we get some massive recruitment, it's likely going to get worse before it gets better. So I think as a community, we're going to need to brace ourselves for the impact of the fact that we are going to see reduced availability to get into some of the services that are there just because of lack of staffing. And this isn't a Slave Lake problem. It's not even an Alberta problem. It's a Canada-wide problem. And so we voiced that with the minister recently at AUMA. I think it's honestly one of, if not the most critical issue going on in Slave Lake right now. And so we don't want to throw it out as a doomsday thing, but I will tell you, like, it is, I cannot see a scenario where it doesn't get worse before it gets better, and it will take a while to get better. And so as a community, we need to brace ourselves for that because it's coming.
On that positive note.
On that positive note, though, I will say that we have recruited another physician who's going through assessment here and will start soon, that we'll see sometime in the spring. And we are advocating for increased numbers of physicians. We have reached out as a elected body to senior leadership within Alberta Health Services to say, how can we help? We're sharing our information on the Slave Lake region and some of our videos and things going on so that when they are advertising, use some of our stuff, because it's going to be a thing where we have to try and stand out against all these other communities. One of the other things too that they've pushed back on is that the cost of living in Slave Lake is different in other communities. And one of the things that we've seen in the past is Alberta Health Services provided incentives, financial incentives if you were to go to North and go to some of the rural communities. They got rid of that a number of years ago, and now because the whole province needs it, we're not standing out in compared to anyone else. And so we're going to have to understand as a community and as a municipality where we play in that and what kind of incentives we're prepared to bring to the table to try and get more people here. Because if we're not talking about it, we should be, because our neighbors are. I can tell you that right now. Okay, let's jump into tourism.
Okay, so the Tourism Society is just completing our final round of interviews so that we can hire a part-time executive administrator. So hopefully we will have someone hired here within the next week or two. We have completed a grant application with Travel Alberta. This is the cooperative investment grant, which we could receive up to $100,000. So we should hear back on that within about 6 to 8 weeks. We are going to be partnering with the Slave Lake Slam ice fishing tournament for the month of February. This is an initiative that was brought forward by Big Lakes County. So Tourism Society in the town of Slave Lake will be partnering, helping them support the event and market that. The society is also going to be working with the Travel Alberta advisors right now. We plan on doing some strategic plan reviews, as well as we will be working on a winter tourism event, hopefully to be held in February. And we have already planned something we are now calling a Beach Fest event that we will be hosting at the beach on August 12th. We plan to bring back the sandcastle competition again and continue to grow out that event with beach volleyball, food trucks, other things down there kind of at the beach for the weekend. We're also looking at printing and marketing materials for the VIC and to be handed out around town, as well as the top 10 things to do in the region. So just a snapshot of a few things that we're working on, trying to plan well in advance for the next tourism season.
Sounds fantastic. Any other questions? Jump into, this is where it's hard because I can't like check it. Library. One saying library.
Also me. So the library, we have started our budget for the year. In exciting news, we should be getting some support from the Peace Library System to start some Indigenous programming here at the library. So very excited about that. One of our archivists is providing family tree lessons that people in the community will be able to book an appointment for, kind of something new and interesting. And then this past month for September, we had over 330 attendances marked for a variety over 14 programs, some online and some in person. And that is that.
Naming advisory,
Have not met.
community futures,
Have not met, meeting next week.
CC,
Have not met.
homelessness.
So lots of activity going on as we are gearing up for the winter season. Our new executive director is busy applying for numerous grants to help with the financial sustainability of the organization. Our application to run the MAP program was approved by the Municipal Planning Commission. However, this decision was appealed and will be going to the Intermunicipal Subdivision and Appeal Board next week. The outcome of this meeting will determine our next steps. We will also be having a public engagement meeting October 25th at 7 p.m. In this room. So anyone who is curious about the program or has questions is invited to attend.
Questions, comments? How are you guys advertising that you're having this meeting on the?
Word of mouth, and then there's some stuff on Facebook as well.
Okay. And I know you guys were doing some engagement in the area there. So do they know what's coming in?
Yeah, I believe they've been putting that out there to the people that they've been speaking with.
Okay. Children Resource Center,
Have not met.
MPC,
Oh, shoot. I was trying to remember. Does anyone remember the last meeting, Frankie? Go for it.
Can end up stumbling my way through this. We received an application from the Homeless Coalition regarding the temporary site for the MAP program for the winter. And that decision was approved, and that is located at the farm hall.
That's it. That was the last meeting.
oh, she really covered for you there, right? Intermunicipal SDAB, we haven't had a meeting. Waste. Oh, I'm supposed to do waste. So waste, our last meeting, and a couple of things, a lot of discussion around budget and reserves and planning. And so in the past, a lot of money that's just unspent in capital and everything is just in this big lump sum piece. And so we talked about the philosophies of how do we deal with the cell? How do we deal with equipment? We have a 10-year capital plan. How is it funded and so on and so forth? And so I think we're 80% of the way there, but there's a little bit more work to be done. And so administration is going to go back and work on some of that, but we did pass the budget and made some motions to allocate some of the money and put in specified reserves. So things are a little more clear. I think what that group needed more than anything is to get some stuff on paper so that those philosophies that we had there weren't just in the heads of the members. So we worked hard on some of that last meeting. One of the big problems out there is theft, and we keep having numerous issues with people breaking in and stealing stuff. Our last most significant one, we lost a side-by-side this summer and some pieces of equipment, working through insurance to get some of that replaced. Have been looking at a building, is one of the options out there to try and get some stuff housed in more in a building. And so it's not just to cut a fence and go. We are going to invest in some lighting and looking at some cameras as well, to have a better ability to monitor out there, because it isn't monitored. It's a easy area for people to just go in and have lots of time to do whatever they need to do and go shopping, which doesn't really work for us and just costs our taxpayers money because we're having to deal with that. One of the other things that is a big issue for us is leachate. And so essentially you dig a big pit there, we throw all the garbage in, but at the bottom of the pit, we kind of have a space with piping that goes in and pumps. And the idea is that as it rains or water drains into that or whatever else, because it's mixing with the garbage, we don't want to just go back into the environment. We have to collect it and deal with it. And so we suck it out of there and transport it to the sewage lagoon where it's treated. And so that costs us a lot of money to haul that, sometimes over $100,000 a year. We just went out for tender, and the tender that we got for it was, we only got one company interested in it, and it was twice what we were paying now. Thankfully, with administration, we were able to negotiate that back to the rate that we are paying now, and I'm quite sure how that worked out, but we lucked out there. But one of the things that we are looking at is an evaporator type system. The idea is because theoretically we need to collect some of these toxic things that are within this leachate, but some of it could be evaporated, and it doesn't take those leachates out into the environment. So ideally, we just want to decrease the amount of volume that we're dealing with, and so what they do is they collect this water and just basically keep reapplying it to the top of the cell. And you lose some to evaporation, but there's also equipment you can invest in that helps to evaporate it quicker. Costs are significant, but I will say as a whole, the group is constantly looking at ways to save money and deal with issues out there. So there'll be a lot of discussion in the future meetings around budget and reserve some more and getting some of that stuff cleaned up. But it was a good meeting, actually, last one. Any questions, concerns? Okay, next is airport.
So we're still dealing with the shoreline erosion issue, still evaluating our options, nothing concrete, but we're reaching out various government agencies to see what kind of grants exist for some remediation there. We also got word that there are plans for a new hangar construction, which is good news for the airport. And we're also looking to collaborate a little bit more with the Tourism Society to help promote various events such as skydiving, flying breakfasts / barbecue, aerial and ground tours. We also reviewed our 2023 budget. The airport will be asking for a minor increase for funding from the town in the amount of $2,250.
No.
We are also looking at quotes for a master plan. We received one quote back, but it was a bit higher than we anticipated. So we're going to go out and try to get some more quotes.
Okay, questions? I have a question for Joanna. When you're done dealing with whatever.
Walking around.
But wouldn't we have minutes from previous committees in these?
Yeah.
And then you could click on them, right?
Yeah.
Like even if it's an old one, you could click on it and see what's in each one.
They're always a couple miles behind.
Totally. Right. And the biggest reason it jumped in my head is because I have legacy next to talk about, but I wasn't at the last meeting there. It's when my dad was in the hospital and last minute I had to go to Edmonton. So I missed it, but realistically, bookings are moving in a positive direction. So we're seeing some more interest in there. So that's been good. We also have been advertising for a while the space that's above the daycare. So for those that forgot, basically the daycare condensed their space and is paying less rent, so make them a little more manageable for them. But we have the space that we need to do something with. And there's been a flurry of activity in the last month or so that we've had a number of groups that are interested in looking at it. So hoping to nail something down sooner rather than later and get that space used and see that revenue coming back in. Operationally, not a lot of maintenance things going on. We did have some requests for we had an interesting one. We had a request for a group that wants to do some climate change action stuff, but basically wanted the facility for 2 weeks to set up a display and use the whole hall area for free for 2 weeks in the spring. And so we're discussing with them about, could they do something more in the lobby? We think it's a good action item, but to lose 2 weeks of revenue on a time that we could be doing bookings just didn't make sense. So we'll see where that one goes. Any questions, concerns? Let's jump into protective services.
Have not met.
Emergency management hasn't met, neither is Northern Alberta mayors and reeves or Northern Alberta elected leaders. So with that, I would entertain a motion to accept the verbal committee reports as information. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor, that is carried. I noticed that we don't have management task list in here. But yeah, that's no worries. We'll do it next time. It's not the end of the world. For those that aren't aware and to the public, we did cancel our meeting last week because we only had one report that was going on there, and council was busy in strategic planning all the next following day. And so we kind of combined this meeting all into one. So we'll pick that up next month again when it comes back. So with that, I guess we just jump into Mayor's Corner, and I got a bunch here, so you guys are gonna have to bear with me for a few minutes. First off, congratulations. Frankie said this already, but big congratulations to all the businesses were nominated for the business awards. I think as a community, I always think it's fantastic when we come together and celebrate people's success. And so these things are built around entrepreneurs within our community that create jobs, that do customer service well, that are seeking innovation, that are growing and starting new things. And, you know, we've had a number of new businesses start during COVID and continue to flourish, and not every community can say that. You know, the last few weeks I was on the road more than I would like to, but I spent a bunch of times with mayors one week and a bunch of elected officials. And I spent another week with a bunch of restaurant owners there as Boston Pizzas all got together. And what was very clear to me is, I'll tell you, Alberta is not a bad place to be right now. And what's even more interesting is Slave Lake is a pretty good place to be right now. A lot of people question the money that we spend on economic development and what are we doing? Maybe it's logo, maybe it's people. Why are we spending this money on these different things? But I can tell you, there is fewer places, and there's very few places in Alberta, if any, that are as busy as we are. Our shops are full. We don't have enough housing in the market. We don't have enough stuff for rent. Everybody's looking for people. We have tourists coming through, and things are happening, and we have businesses starting and businesses growing. And I got to tell you, that's something to be proud of, and that's something we should be excited about. And that's a discussion that those are the things that the community should be talking about. So if you get a chance to say congratulations to those nominees and congratulations to the winners after this weekend, you should, because they have a huge impact on the donations that come back into this community that help things moving along, and have a huge impact on keeping everybody working. We spent last week a full day with council and administration doing strategic planning. So that document will come to a future council meeting. I made some changes to it, but overall the plan is very similar to where it was before. We need to continue to promote our region and our community. And so we're seeing success in that. So why would we stop doing that? We're seeing growth. So why would we not want that to happen? But we also recognize we have to support people, and we have to support our organizations, and we have to support the community being fiscally responsible. So a lot of those themes came out. There was another piece that, chasing opportunity, and the town has done a fantastic job in chasing grants where they're available. And so we need to continue to do that. But there's a lot of pieces in advocacy that still need to come, whether it's help with homelessness, whether it's help with healthcare, whether it's our roads, whether it's investment in our parks. We need that to keep happening. So great discussion, great job by administration and council. And I always love that at the end of it, it helps us align as a group and make sure we're all rowing in the same direction. MLA reached out to me yesterday about priorities. There's obviously a lot of activity going on at the provincial level, and probably questions right from the top about what's the passion of your area, what are the needs of your area. And so the ones I threw at him were, and we talked about this at AUMA, but MSI was a big one for us. And so MSI, for those that don't know, is the Municipal Sustainability Initiative. So for those that aren't aware, municipalities only exist because the province says, hey, you need to exist. This is the rules you have to follow, and this is what you're responsible for. And there's an acknowledgement by the province a number of years ago, over a decade and some ago, that they would need support financially to be able to do that. And so came out with this sustainability grant. And so they made some announcements here the last couple of years that they're reducing that, and we're seeing impacts of 50 to 60% decreases in funding, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars for us every year. And so when I look back and see what the kind of support we got financially 10 years ago, and seeing a 60% decrease in that funding, but recognizing none of the line items that I'm using it for have decreased in price, and most of them have grown exponentially. A lot of the discussions back to our ministers were, you know, what is your plan for us? You know, you mandate that we have to exist on our own. We have to put out these multi-year budgets, and we have to have this planning. But we only exist because you allow us to exist and you support us to exist. And with that decrease in support, I don't know how you're expecting us to do it. And so that was a big message that came along. Second one, I talked about the healthcare crisis and the need for some help there. And said, you know, realistically, you know, we're going to see decreases in levels in service, and, you know, whatever anyone in health is doing right now, if it isn't focused on recruitment, have them refocus to recruitment. And how do we get people recruited quickly and transition into positions quickly? Because as a province, our system is in trouble. Thirdly, I talked about Highway 88 again. That was one, you know, and just pushing on the fact that, you know, that same line that I talked about earlier, that if we're going to pull revenue out of this region, let's reinvest in the infrastructure that's taking a beating to get it. Following along on that, that leads us into the way council had a meeting with transportation ministry, and I think that was just today, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a long day. I went to work at 4:30 this morning, and I'm just trying to catch up on my head here. Transportation, and so some good news coming there. I don't want to toot all their horn, but I think we're finally making some headway on Highway 88. They're going to get us some communication that will come out hopefully next week that we'll be able to share. But I will say, peeking in the box, I'm not saying that the province is committing to fixing Highway 88, but they are definitely trying to scope out what it would cost and what it would look like. And we're excited that we're finally getting some movement other than no go away, there's worse highways in Alberta. Apparently, after challenging them for the last couple of years, pushing on where are they and send us that information, maybe they finally gave up and are actually recognizing that ours is one of the worst in Alberta. So we'll see where that ends up. Intermunicipal and fire service agreements. I don't want to downplay these enough. You know, I think that, you know, multiple meetings, multiple elected officials. I want to give kudos to both sides, that both sides, the elected officials came with lots of good questions, as well as did a fantastic job representing the people that they represent. What was obvious, though, at the end of it, we don't have a lot of changes. And I think it shows that we have reasonably fair agreements that have been reasonably unfair for a while. And I think both residents on both sides should be happy about that, because it shows that we're working together, because those agreements are very much the foundation of how we deliver our services and how we pay for our services, even though as a resident, you don't really see anything different. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Organizational meeting tonight. It was another very different experience for me. I always kind of get excited about organizational meeting because it's, you know, everybody's vying for committees and things are going on and so on and so forth. And, you know, multiple people interested in multiple committees. And that's not what we saw tonight. It was more about how are we going to manage all the stuff that we are doing. And so I think it's just a recognition of the fact that the community is busy, and when you have like 7 people that have very demanding full-time jobs outside of council, there is always this struggle to manage everything that we have to manage. And so I just want to say thanks to all of council for all of their hard work and everything that they're doing, you know, especially ones that have come in new, that, you know, there's been a lot going on in the last year as we crawl out of COVID and get services back up and going and recruiting staff and trying to manage all those pieces when your worlds are already really busy. You might not hear it from the community, but you'll hear it from me that thank you very much. You guys are doing a fantastic job. But our success isn't just because of council, it's also because of staff. And so we're making some headway and some hiring and getting some positions filled, which is exciting, because as much as you want to plan to change the world on council, if you don't have the people to do it, it isn't going to happen, because we're not the ones that pick up the shovel. And so council's excited that actually this Thursday, We have a staff appreciation event going on and hosting lunch for all of our staff, and they don't hear thank you enough either. And so we're going to go and pass that along, because our success is largely due in part to them. Thursday will also be a very busy day because we start budget. And so it is very, we've got our 173-page document there to digest that we got last week, and we'll dig into start of budget. We got a full day this week. We got a full day next week, a couple days next week, and start going into it. Early on looking, Joe can probably tell you what I'm going to say right now, because I say the same thing every year, but I will tell you that, one of the biggest things that's kicking our butt right off the get-go is inflation. And, the whole world keeps talking about inflation. Our banks are trying to curb inflation. And we don't have one business to run. We have 20. One of them is called fire department. One of them is called police. One of them is called water and sewer. And then we have seniors and programming and all these different things. And all those businesses that we have to look after, i.e. departments within the town operation, are all seeing increases in inflation. And so it will be interesting discussions moving forward. Along the line of economic development, I also wanted to, yesterday we had a meeting, an event that the town is planning to host called State of the Union. And ideally, the idea is, Joanne's give me a look. Are we not allowed to talk about this yet, or?
Yeah.
State of the Lake, State of the Union. Okay, State of the Lake. And the idea is that we want to promote some of the things that we've been doing well as we want to connect businesses and industry, get some speakers and talk about what's going on in the world. And so, if I'm a business that exists in Slave Lake, I'm interested to know what's going on in the oil field out there. I'm interested to know what's going on in the forestry world. And so we're lining up guest speakers to come talk about that, as well as talk about what the town has done for economic development and where we're headed forward. And so that event is supposed to take place in November 23rd. We're just nailing down commitments from some guest speakers to make sure that goes through. Why you're shaking your head? Okay. I thought I got that wrong too. No, November 23rd, I'm pretty sure. Is it? When did they change the date? Interesting. Okay, we'll have to talk about that offline, because I think I lined up a speaker for the 23rd. So anyways, yeah, lots happening there, but it'll be exciting to see businesses be able to get a chance to figure out what's going on with industry out there. Lastly, two last things. One, I just want to say a big congratulations and a thank you to the retirement for Dr. Bork, who's been in our community for a number of years. He's got a retirement celebration well-earned planned for this weekend. I was invited to attend, but I cannot. I just wanted to say to him that, I will say that healthcare hasn't been a fun industry to be in for the last number of years, and for him to stay committed through all of those things and to come to our community. He came from across the ocean to bring healthcare to Slave Lake. He was a fantastic addition, and we wish him the best in his retirement as he moves forward. Lastly, definitely some feedback from residents the last little while about petty theft and crime and things that are happening and things go missing, and people peeking over fences and so on and so forth. And what is obvious out there is that there still continues to be a number of people, a number of businesses, a number of individuals that don't report what happens. And so I encourage the community that if stuff goes missing, when you see something suspicious, when something doesn't seem right, report. Additionally, when something happens, you have rights as an individual. And so there's this thought that, like, listen, I'm an individual, and they took this, or I found them in my building, or found a person in here, or I caught someone stealing, or whatever else. But it's just pointless because I'm going to phone the RCMP and nothing really happens to them, and so on and so forth. But I will say that you have rights, and if we don't press charges, we don't deal with those things, it just shows an ability for it to continue to happen, which I don't think is appropriate. I think our residents deserve better than that. And so make sure when you're having those conversations, that you're phoning the RCMP when something happens to you, that you press charges and you deal with it. because that's the way the system is supposed to work. And when we don't, it makes the system look better than it actually is. That was a lot for Mayor's Corner. Maybe I'll get my own page there next week. And with that, that's all I got. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor Brendel. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, guys. Okay, so the whole digital thing, like, I think I could get used to this.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know. I wish that I could have like little check boxes,
what?
because we're still on.
Oh. Tyler, the business arising from
Thank
delegations.
you, Julie.
Just right.